Hi everyone, welcome to the Dog Knows and special welcome to our chat today with Jackie McLaughlin. So Jackie has a beautiful business called Energy Flows, and I've had the absolute honor of meeting Jackie during the pandemic in a couple of networking events, and we've got to know each other since then. So Jackie is, I can honestly say, one of the most beautiful, gentle souls that you'd meet. And just being in her kindness, you will feel that and you'll benefit from it. So Jackie is an authorized practitioner of Jin Shin Jyutsu. I've had to practice that one, which she's going to tell us all about. But before that, I just want to say you're probably wondering why on a dog platform, I have a lady coming in to talk about a complementary therapy. It will all be revealed. Bear with us. So without wasting any time, I'd like to send a warm welcome to you, Jackie. Thank you so much for allowing us the time to get together and have this chat. Really appreciate you being here. And if you could, I'd like you to just give us a little introduction to who is Jackie, please.
Thanks, Mary. It's really great to join you. And it's one of those things where I think that we look at life often in these little boxes. And it's really so much more connected. And when we look at complementary therapy or dog training and all that, there's so many lessons that we can have for ourselves, for our furry loved ones, and just for interactions in general. So I really welcome this collaboration. And just a bit of background for me, as soon as I open my mouth, everybody knows I'm not Irish. I'm from America originally, and I moved here in 2005 with my husband, who's from Rathmines. And I've been loving it ever since. But it was after that time that I came to learn about this Eastern medicine of Jin Shin Jyutsu. And I know it's hard to say, but it's really the art of the creator through the knowing and compassionate person. And what it has to do with is that our bodies have energy going through it all the time. I mean, everything is energy. And when our energy is in good nick and we're not stressed or tense or unwell, we feel great and we can do what we want to do. But once we start getting stressed or tense, we end up with dis-ease in our bodies, whether it's labels or a general sense of unwellness or even just fatigue. And I find that for myself as well as my faithful companion, Cooper. I didn't bring him in because he's kind of big and jumpy.
You'd be very welcome. The next chapter.
But really, when people ask me what I do, it's very hard to put into words. And I mean, I support women who are managing their stress and health conditions. And it lets us go from stress to serenity. And this isn't something where you can only do it in a treatment room. You can do it out in public, whether you're holding your hands or placing your hands gently on your body to de-stress. But even further than that, this light touch therapy has been applied to dogs and cats and gerbils and water buffaloes.
Which is why we have you here today.
Yeah, and I was talking to Mary in a group, and she was talking about collaborations, and this is the book, and I just pull it off my shelf because there's a woman in America who has developed the same understanding of how the energy works in animals as it is in people. So I don't know if I explained this, but
yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose I was intrigued, Jackie, because I know when we did speak, and we only had a brief conversation about this, you had spoke to me about, that we have, and you'll explain this so much better than me, but we have different points around our body, and that animals too have very similar points around their body. So I just find that very interesting, but I love it because part of the dog nose is trying to spread the word that, you know, we may be different species, but we're not really that different. You know, we have needs and we all have health needs. You know, dogs suffer in the same way as humans and have many, well, all of the same conditions. You know, they too can have heart problems and cancers and illness. They too suffer from sadness and depression and anxiety. So even when we spoke, it just, you know, it triggered a lot for me. I was like, this is really interesting. And it helps us to understand, you know, another species a little bit better. And I think when we can understand that species a little bit better, it makes life better for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about those points. What are they, Jackie, and what, you know, what do they relate to?
Okay. The points on our bodies are along the meridians that they would use in acupuncture, where they use the needles. No needles here. Or when you go for a reflexology treatment, because there's specific energy pathways in our body to support us for different things. And what's special about Jin Shin Jyutsu is that the founder in the 19th century, he actually mapped out all these meridians and explored with the pathways. And what he found was that there are certain places on our bodies where we can touch gently and to help move the energy, and so we can feel better. So we have 26 of these entities or energy, safety energy locks on our body on the left side and 26 on the right. And they run all the way from the top of our head down to our toes. Each of them has a special function and a special relationship with our body. So for instance, if we're feeling a bit insecure or something, if we hold just here on our cheekbones, that connects us with profound security. And actually, it's funny because one of our cats is kind of a nervous cat, kind of jumpy. And she would come over to me and I just put my hands, one hand, because she's tiny, right here on her. And she would just stay there for 10 minutes or so, not moving. And then she was done and she just wandered off. But it just shows me that we can heal ourselves through holding these places on our bodies. And I mean, I've been studying this since 2012. So obviously I've learned more sequences and more options and all that, but right from the very start, we can have the benefits because everything goes through our hands. And if you hold the different fingers on your hand, you can help harmonize attitudes or emotions. Like if you're worried, you can hold your thumb. And if you want to just make everything better, just hold your thumb.
And is that like where maybe even without knowing, you sometimes see children or adults fiddling with their fingers? Is there something in that? Is this because sometimes you just find yourself doing things, don't you, that you don't even think about, you don't even notice. But as you're saying that, I'm aware of, you know, this, I'll often, if I have an ache, you know, achy joints, I find myself kind of automatically just realizing I'm massaging that part of the, you know, the bone or stretching it out a little bit. And it does definitely give relief. So is this what you're talking about, Jackie? Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, if we look at the power of touch, there was a study done where they looked at how much stress is in a person. And they did 3 groups. They did one group that hugged themselves, self-touch, one group that received touch from somebody else, and another group that just powered through this challenging circumstance. And what they found was that the 2 groups that were touching themselves or being touched actually had reduced cortisol levels. And they studied it in such a way that it was statistically significant. So it wasn't just like, well, we think maybe. It actually, they put it through all the tests and all that and found a big difference. So, but Mary, if you're finding that you're sore in a certain place, if you're holding that with one hand and put your other hand on the top of your hip just the top of your leg, just where the hip meets,
Mm-hmm.
it can speed your healing by 15%.
Wow. Okay.
Just because you're bringing the energy in and bringing the connections.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good to know. And do you know, the way I see things, Jackie, is we should be open to exploring and trying things. It's like, I know we touched on this before, because I wasn't sure about terminologies, you know, like alternative medicine and complementary medicine. And maybe just explain that a little bit to us as well, because I think, you know, a lot of this is still very new to many of us. And we're slowly waking up to the idea that there are other things, other methods out there to help us.
Yeah, and it is very controversial because I see a lot of things in the news and all that where they talk about people not going to their doctors and then having serious repercussions for it. But I think that there's a place for Western medicine where we go to our GP and get seen to. And in addition to that, we can complement that with other modalities, other therapies, whether it's massage or Reiki or Jin Shin Jyutsu. But I wouldn't want to go down an alternative pathway because I think there's benefits to both.
Brilliant. And it's good just to have that clarified, because sometimes we say words loosely without really understanding what they mean. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And to be honest, Mary, I mean, if somebody, I remember somebody coming to me 15 years ago or so when I was having some serious health problems and said, you might want to consider some other things. And I'm like, no. And it took me actually being brought to my knees to be willing to explore other things. So the more we can broaden our perspective and see the connections between different things, the better we're off.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So now I'm fascinated. So what you're saying to me is that, you know, this Jin Shin Jyutsu, which I'm getting a little bit better at saying, you've made me practice a lot. It's about getting balance in the body, am I right?
It is.
Because I know we spoke before and there's elements of breathing in it as well.
Yeah.
So how, like if someone has to be trained then to be a practitioner, obviously, and the same for working with animals. So what would that look like if, you know, if an animal was to be, I suppose, supported by a practitioner in Jin Shin Jyutsu? How would that look? What would be happening for both?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we do in Jin Shin Jyutsu is to help the being, the person, the dog, to come back to themselves, to come back to center. And we have some positions that we do, like to start here and then go down the body. And there's more information on my website about that. But for instance, if we were going to start with a horse or a dog, the first thing we would do is put our hand on their chest and the other hand on the back between their shoulder blades. And it just gives the opportunity for the creature to settle. But I have to say that sometimes you don't know the animal and they don't want to come see you. They're looking at you like, I don't think so. So the amazing part is that they've found that if I hold my body like this and connect with the dog will come.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with a mother and a child. Sometimes if you have a toddler running around, you can't really do anything with the toddler. Yeah. But if you work with the mother, our energies are all connected. And this is a little woo-woo. I don't normally talk about this stuff.
Yeah, but I think it's good. I know we hear that term woo-woo a lot, but it's education as well, isn't it? And it's gathering information. And, you know, we're all adults and we can make our own informed choices, but unless we get the information, then they're not really informed choices. Yeah. You know, we're basing these thoughts on maybe, you know, our own past experiences, or, you know, going back as well, you know, deep into that childhood where we're formed and we're created, and, you know, our thinking is already set in that way. So for me, people don't have to listen. They don't have to go down this route, but there is no harm in informing yourself. I'm a great believer in that.
And I always suggest to people that it's something where you can best understand it by experiencing it.
Yeah.
Because if I tell someone that simply by holding the insides of their knees for an hour a day, their whole life will change, it's not going to mean anything unless they do it.
Yeah. But it also makes sense when you're talking about animals, because what I find, in my experiences, maybe coming into we'll just say a training session, for example, where you could have a number of people and a number of dogs entering into that space. So you can imagine all the different energies that are coming into that room, especially on the first couple of sessions when they've never met before. So it can be quite interesting for sure. But what I do find is it's like, give a little bit of space, let people sit calm in it, let them be quiet, don't over push, don't invade their space. And I find with some dogs, it's just standing close with them, not doing anything, just be near them and let them get used to your energy. And I suppose you to theirs as well. Probably more unconscious for us, whereas they probably do that more automatic. But the difference from just being calm that can bring to someone, that always fascinates me. And I think for a lot of people that come along to sessions with their dogs, they are coming in with an energy, and if there's any reaction from their dog, they're maybe feel a little bit embarrassed, a little bit awkward, and the humaneness of us comes out, as in shh, you can't do that, you've got to be quiet, rather than just and allowing the dog to adjust, because it has to do that. It needs to be allowed to do that. But
it works the other way around too, because how often do we come home from a stressful day and we sit down and our dog or our cat comes over to us and just is with us, and our heart rate drops, our stress level drops.
So much so. But it's often something that I think we don't think about, Jackie. We just we accept it, and we know we feel happier or feel better, but we don't actually think about what's going on in that moment. We sometimes take everything that our animals give us, we just take it without maybe a lot of consideration sometimes. But I think that's so important, and the evidence and the research that's out there to show how people's health improves in the company of animals, how
don't we live longer
and improve, how we live longer, but how we just feel happier in general, and less isolated, of course. There's so many benefits to that, but it's really interesting to hear of this whole, I suppose, idea of working with animals in the same vein as we do with ourselves. I like that. It's a new learning for me, but something that I'd like to explore a little bit further. So I'll definitely be in touch to find out a little bit more and to get a little bit wiser and a little bit more confident. But I can just imagine for a dog that wants to do that, because I think our dog should always have a choice in what they've been asked to participate in. And you've said it, they'll soon let us know whether they want to participate or they're not. Especially, can you imagine a cat? A cat will not do anything unless it wants to do it. They're two very different ways of thinking, but
they really are.
Our animals are always telling us messages as well. They're always communicating to us. We just, I suppose, have to be open to seeing and understanding what that looks like. So I think it's fascinating stuff. So I think we'll definitely have to have another chat, Jackie, and maybe even get one of my dogs to visit you themselves and see.
That would be lovely.
Work your magic on them. I think you've got one very lucky dog living with you. I think your Cooper is a very lucky dog.
He's very lucky, and I feel very blessed.
And you're very blessed, of course, absolutely. It's always a two-way process, isn't it? Or it should always be a two-way process as well. So I just want to say thank you, Jackie. It's been, lovely speaking with you. And I'm sure everyone can also see what I was talking about, that gentleness of you as well. I always feel calm for a little while after I've been speaking to you. So Jackie, how can people find out or connect with you if they were a little bit more interested, or they'd like to reach out on your personal level, because you work with humans as well?
I do work with humans. Yes, I don't discriminate. I have a website, energyflows.ie, and then on social media, it's very simple. It's at jackie.energyflows.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Nice and easy to find. So,
and
Jackie,
it's so nice to chat with you, Mary.
Oh, it's lovely, and we'll definitely have to do this again some other time. So thank you very much, Jackie, for joining me today, and we will be in touch soon.
Okay, thanks so much.
Take care.